their self-worth is unstable if they're going to base it on that acceptance from others, or just that reaction from online. Definitely, we have to model the behavior, right? The modeling is going to speak way louder than any conversation on social media or lecture for them.
Welcome, Linwood Unified School District families, to another episode of Beyond the Classroom podcast. I am your host, Sarah Barnes, and I'm so happy that you're joining us today as we tackle another important conversation where we discuss how social media and the digital age is really impacting the self-esteem of our youth. In today's digital climate, a simple click of the like button, the heart button, even the thumbs up button is really making or breaking how youth feel about themselves and even how they see themselves. But what happens when our youth sense of self is directly tied to social media approval? How can we help our kids, our children, our teenagers develop a sense of self that goes deeper than the likes and goes beyond how many followers they have on social media? Joining us today is our social emotional learning specialist here at Linwood Unified School District, Isabel Herrera, and she is going to help us explore how self-esteem is being impacted by social media approval today. But more importantly than that, we're going to be talking about how can we nurture and build lasting confidence in our youth who are navigating the digital age. So whether you are a parent, an educator, or just somebody who is really concerned about the next generation, we hope that today's conversation will give you the tools and the insight necessary in how to help guide kids go beyond the screen to really beginning to learn how to value themselves, developing a healthy sense of identity, healthy sense of self-worth, healthy self-esteem as they navigate social media. So let's go ahead and dive in. Thank you, Isabel, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So you are one of our social emotional learning specialists here at Linwood Unified. If you can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your education, and what has drawn you into the field of social emotional learning?
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me here. I'm excited about this topic. As a parent, I've experienced it myself too. So let me start off by telling you that I have been working for Linwood Unified School District. This is my 4th year. I've been at different schools. At the moment, I'm at Lincoln Elementary and Abbott Elementary. I have a master's in counseling and school counseling, so I can be a school counselor from TK to even community college. I'm very passionate about this career. Working here at Linwood and just focusing on social emotional learning has been a dream job, really, because it has allowed me to be able to teach those little ones, those little minds, something that is so essential. We need these life skills to be able to thrive in life. It's not only about being good at math, being good at our academics, but we need these other life skills.
So thank you for sharing. I can't believe you've already been here for 4 years. It's gone by so fast.
I know.
Right?
Time flies.
So I'm so grateful that you joined us today because we are going to be talking about something that it's impacting our kids. I'm a mom, you're a mom. The majority of our listeners are parents as well. So let's go ahead and just dive in and let's talk about why do you think and how is it that social media is shaping and changing the self-esteem of our kids today?
I believe social media can have its benefits and it can be harmful. So it is shaping our children and our adolescents, even our young adults, in different ways. So it all depends how it's being used. I think that's very important. If it is being used in a way where they're looking for their self-worth through online validation, that is scary because it can be very fragile, depending on having to depend on how you feel, what you believe of yourself on online validation it's going to be changing all the time. So we have to be careful the content that we're feeding our brains, and how long are we in front of a screen. So I think it's really shaping them depending on how much it's being used and how it's being used. Because there's also benefits, right? We have those kiddos that are timid or that struggle with social skills, and they've been able to find self-worth through positive content, or they've made friends through some social media platforms. So it really depends, but it's so different, I think, from the way it was when we were growing up.
I know, when I was growing up, I didn't have access to social media. It was like the dial-up AOL system.
I think MySpace was the first thing I remember encountering, and I used it for very little. And then Facebook came on, and it's been ongoing. I can't keep track of everything that's out there now.
I remember when I went to college, my first phone was not even like a phone that had a plan to it. It was a prepaid phone, and I could only use it just to call my parents and for emergencies only. So I didn't even have access to MySpace or anything like that when it first came out. And I think there was something to that for that time period. So I think kids have it a lot more challenging today.
It's different.
It's really different. So let's talk a little bit about that difference. When I was growing up, a lot of my self-esteem, it comes first and foremost from the home life. It's impacted, right, by our caregivers and those that are feeding into us. And don't get me wrong, like our peers impact us as well.
Yeah.
But today's youth, on top of all of that, they have exposure to social media. And as you highlighted, there's the pros and the cons to it. So why do you think it is that the self-esteem of our youth is tied to how many people like them, tied to the comments on their social media, tied to that thumbs up and the heart button? Why is it that self-esteem is directly tied to that?
Like you mentioned, you growing up, you had probably that support system, and I feel that some of our kiddos don't. They don't have those strong relationships, so they're looking for them online. Those likes and those positive comments. It's that. I think it's important we talk about the reward system in our brain.
Yes.
Just that it's gonna give you that happy
the
chemical,
dopamine hit,
the dopamine hit. So the brain wants more of that. It wants to be happy, and having a lot of that, it becomes like an unhealthy habit. It fades really fast, and then we want it again and again. And if we're not getting that positive feedback or that online validation, it's scary, because then our self-esteem can drop. Yeah. So it's very important that we have those strong relationships, that we have a support system at home. And I really feel that the ones that may struggle the most are our kiddos that may feel lonely, or that lack that support, those strong relationships.
I want to kind of linger on that effect of the dopamine cycle, because it does become a brain cycle. And I think what we tend to kind of forget, not like intentionally as parents, but as parents, we don't always think of the neurological impact. So our brains are still developing in our children until about maybe age 25, 26 years old, right? And if it's developing, then it's not fully formed. And as it's being formed, then they're constantly connected to these devices, whether it's electronics, the social media, the gaming. And as you said, it's this brain cycle of the high hormones, and then it crashes. And then it wants, and they really do compare the effect of social media to that of like a gambler, to that of a drug user. It has those same addictive components. But what we're failing to realize, these are not adults. utilizing the social media. And it affects us as adults.
Yes.
But how much more the developing mind and the developing brain?
And like you said, so the brain doesn't fully develop into the mid-20s. So the area that handles the reasoning, the self-control, that's fragile.
Right.
They're still learning. So they're connecting themselves and getting that validation from there. They're not able to say, hey, is this healthy? Is this not? Should I stop? That's why it's important that they lean on, that our caregivers are, constantly monitoring the content, especially for elementary kiddos.
Yeah. Because not only is it the developing brain, but it's also now going to negatively impact that development. Now the brain actually kind of gets stunted. Like you highlighted some parts of the brain, the insight, the judgment, the impulse control. Well, all of that now is being hindered. And there's a barrier to the optimal potential growth of that brain.
Yeah.
And so there's that hindrance happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then not only is it the brain cycle that's happening, but there's another component where with the likes and the comments, it also kind of determines, am I popular? Or am I liked?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Am I wanted? It kind of makes them interpret like their social standing in school. So there's all these...
Their self-worth is unstable if they're going to base it on that, acceptance from others, or just that reaction from online.
Yeah. I once read that a child, if they, by child I'm talking about like the younger teen population, that if they upload something like on Instagram and there's been this response that if they don't get about maybe 400 likes within like the first hour, then they delete it because that picture's not good enough. They weren't liked enough. And then they're making these interpretations about themselves. Right?
And it really affects them, because if they got that validation at one point, but now they're, posting something else, what's going on? What's wrong with me? What did I do? What they think it's something that they're doing wrong, or that they look different. So it's really affecting them, the way they base their self-worth on that.
So true. Okay, so that segues me into my next question for you, is the development of self-esteem. What is the difference between self-esteem that is built basically externally, which is in this discussion primarily is more narrow because we're talking about the influence of social media. So social media would be like that outside force, right? So the external self-esteem. And what is the difference between external self-esteem versus internal self-esteem?
So I like to see it as conditional and unconditional. So conditional self-esteem is going to be based on online validation, or the outside approval, or what you hear from other people. That's going to be your way of determining how you feel or how you see yourself. And internal is more on, what do you believe about you? Who are you? Who's your true self? So are you appreciating yourself? Do you love yourself? So that's the self-esteem that we want to work on, right? Staying true to yourself. I feel that it's important that we know the difference, and that we try to build up internal self-esteem.
Well, that's really interesting to know about, that there completely is a difference between external self-esteem and internal self-esteem. And I believe that how much time our children spend on social media can really negatively impact them to develop a very fragile sense of self. Because it's always being compared maybe to the status of their friends or their peers, what they have, what they don't have, who likes them, who doesn't like them, things like that. Who's rich, who's poor, right? It's such this negative pattern begins to brew. So that leads me to my next question for you, which is, what are the warning signs that a parent or even an educator can recognize in a child who is overly tied and overly connected to social media? What are some of the things to look out for?
So there are quite a few, and it's sad working in the elementary schools. You get to see it as well, and it's sad to you can tell like, oh, this kiddo needs a little bit more real life connections. You'll notice that they may be irritable, they get frustrated easily, they're socially withdrawn, so that they may lack those social skills because they don't know how, because they're constantly connecting online. You may notice signs of anxiety or depression, again, because they're not on their phone, or when they are on their phone, again, they're looking for that online validation. If they don't have it, that's going to affect their self-worth. And just their mood swings too. You'll see them, if they're getting positive feedback, they're going to be happy. You're going to see them a little bit more.
Or they can have like some of those explosive tantrums.
Yeah.
If they're not connected, or if something is going haywire while they're actually connected on social
irritable, media. Like those. And I believe every parent, a caregiver, knows their child. If you're struggling and noticing, changes, it's because maybe you're lacking that connection with them. And I'm hoping that, this and other resources can assist with that. But we can tell when something's off, and it's important that we pay attention to those signs and we try to check in. Hey, what's going on? I noticed you were just happy right now. And, as a parent, I see it too. I'm like, what happened? And connect with them, ask them how they're feeling. Well, I noticed you were okay right now. Did something happen? And then just start that conversation.
There's also like another example, and I believe personal disclosure could go a long way for the people I'm talking to or talking with too. My son plays baseball, and he's 10 years old. And one of his playmates, if you will, one of the fellow baseball players, he's also 10. Well, he recently got a brand new cell phone. And the mother told me several games ago that after she bought him the cell phone, that he told her he didn't want to play baseball anymore. And even though the mother's like, no, like, you are going to play baseball. But that's also another indicator that your child might be spending too much time online, because they really begin to lose interest in the things that they used to love doing. They lose interest in all the offline activities. So whether that's baseball, basketball, maybe cheerleading, going to a friend's house, going, shopping, enjoying a coffee, as our teen goes to Starbucks, they want to stay home more and do less things. And I thought that was really interesting. He's only 10 years old, and quickly he lost interest in baseball. And for what? And
you touch a very important topic as well. Like, when are they ready to be on social media? The more you delay it, the better. They say it's 13. But
even then,
are they cognitively and emotionally ready? So we really have to monitor and see. Well,
it really, I think maturity matters. Just because they might be 13 doesn't mean that they have the maturity to be able to handle it well. Or maybe they need a lot more structure and a routine guiding their usage of it, right?
Yes. I went into a classroom the other day, a first grade classroom, and touching on the types of bullying. It's another subject, but really quick, I got to the one cyberbullying, right? To the type of bullying. And I was surprised because I asked, how many of you guys have cell phones? Because I was like, oh, doesn't really apply to you. Half the class raised their hands, and this is a first grade class. So I'm just hoping that, it's being monitored, that the content, is appropriate for their age.
Have parenting apps on there. I know my son's been bugging me. I want a phone. I'm like, absolutely not. You have your watch. You could text. You could call. There's no access to internet. There's no games, no YouTube on there. But I don't want him to have access.
I'm best. Right? When he'll be ready.
I'm like 16. 18 maybe. But we'll see. Maybe I'll let him at 16. No, it's not that I don't trust him. I trust him, but I don't trust the pop-ups, and I don't trust these impromptu links that just suddenly come your way, whether it's through an email or through a text message. And I don't know if you could be overly protective when it comes to social media right now. And the number one thing that really affects youth of today with their self-esteem, and really that lends its way to suicide in children and teenagers, is cyberbullying.
Yeah.
So yeah, they might have a phone, they might have an iPad, they might have a computer. That's all good. It's not the device that's bad. It's the appropriate use of it.
Yes, and like we said, right? They're not emotionally prepared, so it can be a comment, something that you and I can see, and it's like, oh, it was no big deal, but for them, it's really big. It's really big, and they take it to the heart, and it can be very.
It's devastating.
It's devastating.
The younger the mind, the more impactful it is to them. The heavier the weight it carries, that comment carries in their heart and in their minds. So I think it's very important that parents really think about it and plan it out and strategize when it's appropriate to give a child a device.
Yes,
and I understand the importance of, I need to know where my child is, who they're with, what's going on. But there are other resources out there, not just a cell phone for
and like you said,
children.
your son has it
On the watch.
Yeah. My kiddos had access to a phone when they started middle school. For the same reason, because the distance and being able to know, communicate with them. But my son's 13; he doesn't have any social media. He has a few games, and he still complains and says that I'm a strict mom because it still gets locked, and he has his routine, and and he'll come and I'll say, well, I have good grades.
And it's like I told my son recently, I want you to be happy. Your happiness means so much to me, but your happiness is not my priority. Your safety is my priority. And if I could keep you safe until at least you're 18, and then at 18, hopefully you learn all these life skills. You're ready to
make your own choices.
Make your own choices at that point. But I think we all want our kids to be happy, and there's some of that misplaced guilt as parents, oh, I need to give my child this. That's why I said, all my friends at school have cell phones. They're not my kid.
Yes, that's
sorry,
what
baby, they're not my child.
Everybody has their own parenting style, and I respect it. I tell my son the same thing.
Yeah. All right. So, what is the biggest risk you would say when young people are so tied into social media that only those likes and comments matter, and they kind of carry a little bit more weight than the parent influence, the teacher influence? What are some of those risk factors?
Again, their self-esteem. It's going to be affected if they're depending on just that online reaction, the validation, and their mental health is going to be affected the older they get. So it's very important that we catch that and that we address that with them, and that we connect with them with compassion. If we need to correct something because we notice something was done inappropriately online, or that they're found in a situation that's kind of difficult, connect with them, but with compassion. The more we are able to build that trust, they'll come to us, they'll open up, and they'll share. And I would recommend that we have these conversations, if you can, on a daily basis. Talk to them about social media and what's out there online, and about the risks. That way they know when they come across something, they'll remember. And remind them, if you come across something and it doesn't feel right, come to me. Or if you don't, I even tell my son, if you're exposed to something, or even at school, and you don't want to talk to me because you feel that you're going to get in trouble, and which I always remind them, you won't get in trouble. If there's needs to be consequences, there will be. Right. But I'm your parent. I love you the most. I go and I'm here to be able to help you and guide you. But I tell him, if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, talk to your sister. Yeah. To someone else, or to your dad, and then we can find a solution. I don't want them to feel that. We don't want our kiddos to feel that they're alone in a situation that can be very difficult for them, And again, we are able to see it in a different lens. We're able to support them, but they don't see it. They don't see it that way. Yeah, it's like the end of the world sometimes, and we need to let them know there's a solution for this. Yeah. We can and
I think part of those risks, it's because they also, when they're so connected to the likes and the comments, you talked about the self-esteem, but it's also, it revolves itself on this like revolving door of pure orientation influences. So as you highlight, like the self-esteem takes a hit and then it becomes more fragile. And what we need to realize is that when fragile self-esteem is being created and molded and is being repetitive, with the whole social media likes and comments, then it really perpetuates itself. And what I mean by that is it creates a lifelong problem where kids have more problem solving. Kids become more like people pleasers. They become less confident in voicing their opinions or their convictions or their beliefs. And basically, when you don't have a voice and you're a people pleaser, then all of that lends its way to anxiety and the depression that you were highlighting earlier. And we're not realizing it, but these are lifelong journeys of problems.
Yeah, their mental health. It's really hard to get out of it, right? Or to get that get out of that cycle. Yeah.
And then there's like another risk factor on top of it, which is, let's get away from the self-esteem, but with the likes and comments, then there's the biggest factor here, if we're going to really talk about risks, human trafficking. Our teenagers, we tell our kids in preschool, stranger danger. Well, that follows itself into social media as well, through these direct messages from strangers posing as little kids or posing as teenagers, and there's 60-year-old men trying to hit on our teenage daughters or boys. And before you know it could turn into a very bad situation very quickly, where sexing gets involved and show me pictures of yourself. And then the trauma of that, when everything gets out there, not only is it dangerous, but if children survive that, now trauma follows it. And then that plays a even deeper toll on self-esteem. So there's all these collateral effects.
So much, So it's...
And I've had multiple clients where this has happened to.
I think, and that's why it's important to catch those when you start noticing those changes. Again, when you notice something's off, try your best to connect with your child to be able to, have those conversations about privacy too, right? And again, for the elementary kiddos, I feel that we still should monitor their content.
Absolutely.
And make sure that they're not going into sites that are not appropriate. Because like you said, it can slowly lead to something like that.
It could snowball into a bigger situation, right? As a parent, sometimes we're just so burned out and we're so drained and exhausted. We're I don't know, busy doing the laundry or the dishes or the cooking and the cleaning or with our jobs or the kids' homeworks or school projects. How can we encourage parents to kind of like slow down enough, even if it's just to take a 2-minute check-in on the history or to look at the phones or the electronics to, okay, what is being viewed, what is being observed? How can we get the parents to, to make it a part of their everyday rhythm or weekly flow?
I think, and it's essential that they get to do that even if we have a busy life. I think we have to be careful with our tweens and even, more our adolescents and teenagers, where you have to, you're building that trust, right? So you can't just grab their phone because then you're going to break that relationship, right? Again,
well, what age though?
I know. Well, it depends too, right? But your child and you have to find ways to do it. You have to also respect their privacy in some way, but have those conversations before you give them access to your phone. You know that I'm able to grab your phone at any moment and, assist you with it.
Some of us are old school. There's no privacy when you're under this roof.
Well, for example, my daughter, she's 19.
Okay.
So I wouldn't grab her phone, even when she was 17, again, because it was that trust. And I had that relationship with her, and she would come and, talk to me about certain things. But she and I would always tease her, I can come grab your phone, and I know her password, but she knows, she trusts me. She knows that I won't. So I try to respect that. But my son, he's 13, and he'll start asking, why were you looking at he has like a group chat with some peers. Okay. They get together and FaceTime and they game. And so they have their little routine. So I told him, hey, I can check it, at any moment. Are you hiding anything? And that's where the conversation, but I kind of tease him about it, and we start that conversation. And I remind him, hey, I'm your parent. You're still young and you're still learning. So I think having those conversations, and even, let's say, like I said earlier, correcting them with compassion. Let's say they did, I don't know, they got in trouble or something. The way you're going to take their phone away is also very important because of nomophobia, right? I think you have to be able to explain to them with compassion, you know what, this is what happened, and I feel that these are the consequences. So have these conversations with them. We have to give them that, what's the word? We're preparing them for when they get older and they're able to have these conversations with someone when there's conflict, right?
Yeah.
If we just like keep it one-sided and they're feeling like they have no voice. My son will tell me like, well, you came up with these rules. I didn't agree to them.
Yeah.
So what I do now is like, you know what, let's sit down. Let's talk about them. Of course, I have more, power in what we decide. But, I'm giving him the opportunity to also share, what he feels.
You're respecting his voice and you're giving him space.
I think
to express.
Yes, the more you do that, you're building that trust. Like, okay, I can talk to my mom about this, or my caregiver. So I think it's going to be important that you lay those rules at the beginning. So just know that, if I'm noticing, that your grades are dropping or that something's off, I have a right to check your phone. And it's because I love you and I'm worried and I want us to, problem solve together. Having these conversations with them.
I love the word you use, compassion. I just love that word in my daily life.
Me too.
Because it's not just compassion for our children, it's huge, but it's compassion like for humanity.
Yes.
Compassion for the person sitting next to me, compassion for you. And compassion, when we look at the word, it really means to suffer alongside with.
Yeah.
To have pity for. And our kids, whether they're 5 or 10, sometimes they feel like they're suffering emotionally because they're still building their emotional intelligence, right? And so for them, it's like, oh, you took away my device, or you're putting boundaries, and they don't have always the maturity to deal with those limits that we're setting for them. And I think the compassion goes a long way because it's like, we see that they're suffering, and really, we know they're not suffering, but in their little minds,
for them,
they are, whether they're 5 or 7. For them, they're trying to, these are overwhelming big feelings.
Yes.
But if we take a pause and say, I want to parent with compassion, is taking a step back and saying, okay, I could suffer alongside with my kid.
Yes. And can I add, and something that I've shared in workshops and it has helped me so much, understanding versus patience. So we say, just be patient with your child. No, if you have understanding, if you take the moment, let's say your child's having a tantrum, you take the moment to remember what's happening here, like the reasoning, remember it's still not fully developed. It helps, it's helped me to, you know what, he's really, like you said, he's really suffering. This is really big for him or her. But just reminding myself, understanding, and it helps me to be compassionate and say, you know what, there's moments where, let's say it escalates and they're being disrespectful. I just remind them, take some space. Even with kiddos in school, it seems like you're having a hard time, have a moment, we can talk about it after. That way they go through the feelings. Yeah. We have to let them feel and let that energy, whether it's anger or sadness, out through tears or through shouts or whatever it is. And then once they're more calm, then having these conversations. I removed your phone because, once you explain to them, they're a little bit more calm in their understanding when you're trying to express that to them.
Right. So it's really like communication with compassion, inquiry, asking the questions with compassion, guiding with compassion, and then deciding with compassion. And when the kids do have a temper outburst in those moments, I want to piggyback on what you're saying. Sometimes I'll tell the kid, your anger is justified. You're normal in how you feel, but I'm going to continue respecting you when you feel angry and you're still going to respect me when you're angry.
Yes.
But we'll sit together in your anger, but we're not going to disrespect each other.
Right, right.
And then, because then we're not judging them.
Yes.
We're validating.
We're letting them be.
Your feelings are valid,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not going to do the behavior
Yes.
that's disrespectful or even harmful to yourself or other people.
And that's when we throw out there, remember the coping strategies we've been practicing, and then kind of try to remind them. Although it's hard because I like to explain to the kiddos at school that their brain goes into a lock mode. And I'll show it visually. I go, when you're really angry, you can't think. I explain at their level, emotional Eddie and thinking Thelma, they're not working together right now. Emotional Eddie's in control. So you want thinking Thelma to come back and work with emotional Eddie so you can calm down, So take those deep breaths. I'll pull out fidgets if they need them. Or do you want to go take a walk? Do you want to drink some water? Anything that can calm down the brain, I tell them. So I think it's awareness.
Yeah. It's like their brain goes offline.
Yes.
Just like we're trying to get them offline a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's part of life, and it happens to adults too. I don't know. I think it's one of our questions as well about awareness. I think the key is in awareness, having that awareness and then that understanding in difficult moments, and reminding yourself, okay, this is what's going on. Let me take a moment to pause and
because even we have to recalibrate.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So what can a parent or educator do to help build self-esteem in our youth today that is separate from the social media approval and that really just celebrates them and who they are, separate from this digital age of always being online? How can we celebrate them?
So praise the process. Our kiddos are learning, and sometimes we don't realize it, but we're like praising like how they look, or you look so beautiful today, or and we forget that we have to also point out what's in here. Oh, I saw how kind you were with your friend earlier, or how helpful you were with mom. Praise their effort. Point out like their character, their values, what you see in them. Bring that out.
Things that are inside of them already living within them.
Yeah, and then help them have a growth mindset. Practice it. It's really hard sometimes for our kiddos. Like, no, I couldn't, and they give up. I can't do this. You want them to learn that the process is what is going to make them achieve that. Always praise the process, even when they're having a hard time. Highlight again their character, their just their personality, because everybody's different. And we go back to, you go online and you're comparing yourself, but there's so much beauty in each person. Yeah. And it's in there. Sometimes you're not noticing it because maybe you're not hearing it from other people. And as caregivers, we have to remind them how amazing they are.
And really amazing, unrelated to their successes or their performance. And that's why I like what you're saying with praise the process and the fact that you're getting to the character and their internal qualities, because it's separate from them having to earn your love or earn your affirmation or earn any positive input into their lives. Yeah,
so that's very important. Just highlight who they are, and everybody's going to be different. And when you catch themselves comparing themselves to someone else, point out what, the beauty of them, who they are. So I think that's going to be essential to help them build that self-esteem. And there's a lot of little other things that they can do, like giving them chores, not to the extreme. They learn how to become responsible and competent because, they're achieving something while they're learning. So just, and having that connection with them, that real life connection, being able to get to know them every day, because our kiddos change in a blink of an eye. So their strengths may be changing, or their likes. They may not like baseball anymore, or they might like another sport or something, or have them explore new things where they can, try to find that true self.
Right. Really honing in on the individual traits of each child.
Yes,
right?
I think that's going to be important.
And I think another important component would be also to build upon their emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
I think that's a pivotal factor in celebrating them to where they feel more confident, is if we could build upon that emotional intelligence.
Yes, teaching them how to be aware of their emotions, how to manage them as well.
That their emotions are okay.
Yes, and again, even if they're trying to learn something new and they're having a hard time with it, they may get unmotivated and like, I don't want to do this anymore. Hey, but you did, you're trying, and that's important, and constantly praising that, I think is going to help them build that confidence and that resilience.
Are there like practical things that parents can do to support building the self-esteem and also encouraging like a removal or decrease in online activities?
So, like you mentioned earlier, offline activities. Find something that they can do outside of just a screen, like, and you can even set up like a routine. You know what? On Mondays we're gonna go shoot some baskets, or on Wednesdays make a routine with them if you can. Again, sometimes it's so busy.
Yeah.
But try to carve that quality time. I think that's really gonna help them just to see a world outside of on a screen, So having like little social holidays too, maybe a weekend without phones.
No, I like that. Where everybody is
like a little
off
detox.
the phone, right?
Yeah, like a little detox. It may be a little difficult, but
A social media detox.
Yeah. Having like free zones, where you cannot have your phone. Like we can't have it during our dinners on the table. Or like if there's family over, my kiddo knows that he can't be playing games or
he has to be engaged.
Yeah, I want him to have those connections, so promoting a lot of those real life connections, going to places where they can practice those social skills, and setting rules on at this time we cannot, we're going to put our devices away. I would push also for not letting your child charge their phones in their room.
At nighttime when it's bedtime, or just in general?
And during bedtime.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a temptation. Remember, our brain is going to crave it if they've been using it. And again, it's not that they're being irresponsible, but their brain is still developing, so they may not, I'm going to use it a little while. They won't know, and then it becomes a habit.
Right,
so little things like that, just being able to set those rules.
And there's like these little details that a lot of us don't know, but we shouldn't have the phones next to our heads while we're sleeping anyways. I know research says that a phone should be at least 15 feet away from your head charging, which means it should probably likely be in another room, not just for the temptation's sake, but also for brain health, because of the radio waves and all of that impacts the waves of our neurological system.
Yeah.
So that's another podcast topic.
Another conversation.
But extracurricular activities is a huge part of, I think, building self-esteem, because they learn the problem-solving skills. They learn to socialize.
Teamwork.
They learn how to lose well. They learn how to win well.
Yeah.
Right?
And a healthy self-esteem is, for example, let's say you didn't make that goal that you really wanted to make, I'm going to try next time, it's okay. And you can be sad about it, but you not give up, but if you're really struggling and, no, I don't want to play this anymore because that our self-esteem is a little shaky, and the sports can really help.
Right. And not only should we monitor our children's social media, but now that as parents, our kids tend to do what we do more than what we say.
Yeah.
So how should we as parents role model our own utilization of social media?
Definitely. We have to model the behavior, right? The modeling is going to speak way louder than any conversation on social media or lecture for them. So we need to also have limit our time, or at least not do it in front of them. I know a lot of times I need a break.
Yeah.
We'll get on there. I like to
We'll
get
scroll.
on Pinterest for ideas.
For Etsy.
And I try my best not to do it so much in front of my kids, because then what am I, I'm over here telling them, hey, put it away a little while, and then I'm on it. So we need to model the behavior. Is very important. And we get that a lot at school too. Well, my mom's always on the phone, or my grandma, aunt, or they saw something from someone's phone. So yeah, it's very important that we model the behavior.
Because you're right, they don't know what we're necessarily doing. Like, I could literally be studying, whether it's for a podcast or just because I want to expand my learning in the field that I love so much, mental health. But to them, it's like, oh, they're just glued into their phone.
Yes.
So if you could do it, I could do it. Yeah. So they are already misinterpreting my actions, but they don't know any better because they just see the device.
Right. And again, it's having those conversations with them, I have to work on this, but I'm going to be on and saying it out loud. Not that we have to give them explanations for everything we do, but if you want to, model it for them so they understand what you're doing.
Because you're modeling appropriate utilization of it.
Yeah. That's important for them to see.
Well, at the conclusion of every podcast, we do what's called a take-home challenge for our families that are tuning in today. What is one thing that you could suggest that a parent can do in their home to make a small change? So in other words, my question is, what small change can a parent make this week or even today to build their child's self-esteem in the home?
Yeah, so a lot of what we talked about, but one thing is give them love. Give them love, and we already do it in so many different ways, preparing a meal for them, checking in on them. But when it comes to social media, just have those real life connections. That way they don't have to go to their phone, just checking in on them. Oh, how was your day? And I know we get a lot of responses. It went okay, or nothing happens, but ask, what was your highlight of the day? What was your low of your day? That starts the conversation, and you get to know your child, you get to connect with them. We're so busy that we don't realize it sometimes that you didn't have a full-on conversation with your kiddo. So connect with them. That way they don't go so much to their devices, and they're able to have that, real life connections.
For busy parents, there is a recommendation. It's called the 7-7-7 rule. Do your best as a parent in our daily lives to connect with our children. And if you can't do a full hour after school, it says it would be best if you could do 7 minutes of bonding before school in the mornings, 7 minutes of bonding right after school, and 7 minutes right before bedtime. That if you could do those 7-7-7, so you get a solid, undistracted 21 minutes with your child, and that those 21 minutes of undistracted, undivided attention with your child will make a huge difference in their sense of self and their self-worth. And not only that, but how they feel accepted and embraced and loved within the home as well.
I agree. And you mentioned the morning. It's important that the kiddos are not on their devices in the morning, because they come to school and their brain is already wanting more
wired
of that. Yeah. So just those 7 minutes of conversation, or praising, just something that they saw positive in their kiddo. That's going to be very important.
It goes a long way.
Yes.
Small things lead to big things, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Isabel, for joining us today. And parents, thank you for tuning in. I do hope that you were given tools and insights as to how to support your child's self-esteem to grow, not from external influences, which will be there in this digital age and modern era of social media, but also how to support our kids with developing internal self-esteem that will guide them on their lifelong journey. So some takeaways from today would be to role model self-esteem to your children, to practice compassion with your child, I love what she said, to practice positive praise, see everything through the lens of positive praise as well. And lastly, that to love our children unconditionally, kind of taking away the love with conditions, love with performance-based behaviors from our children, but to love them, their character, their inner qualities, their uniqueness, for who they are as just individual little human beings, because one day they are going to be adults thriving and performing, and we want the best for our students here at Linwood Unified School District. So feel free, if you have any questions, to contact the Student Services Department. We have a health collaborative referral system if you are interested in getting your child support through our social emotional learning specialist and or also our licensed clinical social workers. We thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward for you to tune in with our next episode on Beyond the Classroom podcast. Thank you and take care.